How challenging would it be if you simply only focus on the rearview mirror as you're driving? Could you imagine that? With that same logic, wouldn't it be hard to focus on the future if you're always looking at the past in your own life? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Ignite the World podcast. This is episode number 23, Windshield Vision, driving towards the future, not in your rearview mirror. I am your host, Jamie Dottie Garza, and if you haven't done so, please consider subscribing, supporting the Ignite the World podcast, and tuning in. Thank you very much. I want to talk about, first, let me break down an analogy for you guys. I shared this analogy with my past networking group because I used to serve as education coordinator, and it's still very relevant information now as we all continue on our journeys. And I want us to imagine you're in a car, right? You got a windshield in front of you. That's how you're driving and moving forward. But also, you gotta acknowledge the rearview mirror. And obviously, the windshield is a lot bigger to look through as opposed to that rearview mirror. I want you guys to imagine if you were to drive, if you live where I live right now in Virginia, in Stafford, Virginia, you want to go either north or south, right? Let's say you're on the highway. How challenging would it be if you simply only focus on the rearview mirror as you're driving? Could you imagine that? On the highway, looking at only the rearview mirror. Be probably pretty difficult, right? With that same logic, wouldn't it be hard to focus on the future if you're always looking at the past in your own life? That's what I want to bring home. Oftentimes, we get so focused on our past that we don't see out the bigger picture, out the bigger vision, like our windshield when we want to move forward. And I get it. Our past is what makes us who we are today. Our past is our past. But here's the thing. Our past, we don't have to live our past. We can grow from our past. Let me tell you, I've oftentimes I reflect a lot. And over this past weekend, 7 years goes by fast. And sometimes when I'm on Facebook, I'll get notifications. You know those memories, right? Those memories. And I often cringe because of things I used to do in my past. Language I used to say, being absurd. The fact that I used to take pictures and, the classic pose, be posed up with an alcoholic beverage or bottle, middle finger up in the air. That's what I was doing in my 20s, my early 20s, and I thought that was cool. I'm embarrassed now seeing those things, but I don't delete those things because that's what I've come from, but don't judge me. Matter of fact, but those are things of my past. And you see, I had two options. I could continue to live like that going into my 30s, or I can leave it as a learning experience from my past. You see which one I'm working. I chose to leave it behind me. So many of us, as we continue to want to achieve and accomplish those big goals for us, our families, our spouses, our children, or where we want to go, I know for a fact that a lot of us focus on looking at our past and not focus on the future where we want to go. We're too worried about where we've been. You know what makes us different as humans as opposed to animals like cows? If you think about it like this, and I got this from a great book, by the way, I just finished reading. Shout out to Business Secrets from the Bible by Daniel Lupin. And in that book, it said we as humans have the ability to change our circumstances and where we want to go when we say we want to change, as opposed to perhaps a cow or any type of animal. They don't have that luxury. In fact, if you're a cow on a farm, most likely you will still stay on that farm, and you may potentially be slaughtered and sold for meat, as meat. Us as humans, we have the ability to change every day. If you're someone like me who realized that alcohol was a huge pitfall in my life over the past decade, and it was doing more harm than good in my life, even when I was quote unquote celebrating things, I realized that, hey, let me take alcohol out my life and see what it does for me in a year. And the results have been night and day. Clearly focused. I am disciplined. I can be a great example for my children, my friends, my family. I am performing at the best levels I've been ever, and actually has been helping with my mental health. I've been free, and it's been huge over the past year. I'm never going to go back to alcohol. I don't even have a thrill to drink it. I'm fine. But notice what I said right there, living proof of it, of changing my circumstance of where I want to continue to go. Same way with me thinking I know everything. Over the past year and a half, I've truly let God do his work and let go and finally understand what that means. Why I'm saying this is because at any given time, we can start a change that will affect our future and where we want to continue to go. I know for a fact personally, if I was still doing the same things I was doing 10 years ago, I would be in the same hamster wheel that I was in, and I would not elevate. I would be very stagnant. But if you constantly look in that rearview mirror and always look at what you were or your past, or you may even doubt yourself that you are even capable of what you envision, and you may doubt what God has in store for you. That's what happens when you look in the rear view. You guys ever been in a car and it's cold outside and you have to get the ice scraper out and you have to scrape that first part of the windshield so you can continue to move forward? Sometimes that's what you have to do in life. That's sometimes what you have to do to keep moving forward. Eventually, the whole windshield would clear up, but sometimes you just got to take some action, and get to where you want to go and let everything open up for you. You got to enjoy the process. Everything's going to be a process. Everything's going to require discipline. Everything's going to require you to show up. It's going to require you to be a better version, a more enhanced version than you were yesterday. I'm walking in it right now. Sometimes I get overwhelmed. Sometimes I get doubt creeping in, but that ain't nothing but the enemy right there. He wants me to think that because he knows that God has something bigger in store for me. He has something big in store for you. But it's up to you to take the challenge. It's up to you to step up. It's up to you to show up. It's up to you to start and do that change right now. This is a call out to anybody right now. That thing you're putting on the back burner because you don't want to start, or you're scared, or you keep looking in the rear view and not in the windshield. This is your calling to go ahead and start and do it. I don't care how small it is. If it requires you to stop eating a certain type of food because you want to have better health for your kids in 10 years going into your 40s, start today. That's where it started with me. I would have never imagined me to be a continued vegetarian for going on 3 years, but I made the start. Those days turned to weeks. Those weeks turned to months, months into years, etc., etc. Same thing when I used to smoke cigarettes in my early 20s. Matter of fact, earlier 20s than that. I made a commitment after I was 25, like, look, I didn't even have kids at the time, but this is literally, I'm smoking cancer. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, I'm glad that my kids don't have to see me smoking cigarettes. I'm glad they don't have to be around that. I'm glad that I can lead an example, be like, hey, I was there, but look what change can do. Look what God can do. Look what discipline can do. Look what your mentality can do. And hopefully it honors me a few extra years of health when I get older. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you for listening. I want you guys to remember this. We are all like sticks to dynamite. The power's on the inside, but nothing happens until the fuse gets lit. Ignite the world.